to come and make sure that everyone can participate in this event. Nuria?
Buenas noches a todos. Yo soy su intérprete del idioma español esta noche. Y bueno, nuestro presidente del PTA, que es de la Asociación de Padres de Familia, la señorita Charlene Walters, ella es la presidenta de este consejo y ella nos va, bueno, va a ser una de nuestras facilitadoras. Y bueno, también expresó que ambas intérpretes, tanto yo como la señorita Ana Arsumanian, hemos sido patrocinados por este consejo de PTA. Y bueno, para que les vamos a dar algunas indicaciones para que puedan ingresar a los canales, en este caso en español, y ustedes van a ver un mundo color gris en su parte inferior derecha de su pantalla, y ahí van a presionar la sala de español. Asimismo, indicaciones de cómo va a ser la dinámica de este webinar, en donde va a haber preguntas, va a haber un espacio para hacer las preguntas que ustedes deseen y ahí con mucho gusto nosotros se las vamos a responder. Una de las cosas que tienen que saber es que una vez que nosotros estamos en nuestra sala de interpretación, ya no vamos a tener contacto verbal como el que tenemos ahorita. Entonces todo va a ser a través del chat en donde nosotros vamos a poder interactuar, pero las preguntas van a estar en donde dice cuya. Y bueno, sin más por el momento, espero que les guste mi interpretación y también si desean decirme si no escuchan o lo que sea, a través del chat yo voy a poder verlo. Y bueno, sin más por el momento, espero que disfruten esta presentación. Muchas gracias. Y bueno, quiero presentarles a nuestra intérprete de el idioma armenio, que es Anhit Arsumanian. I would like to introduce to you our Armenian translator, Anhit Arsumanian.
Thank you, Nuria. Բարի երեկո, ես Անահիտ Արզումանյանն եմ, հայոց լեզվի թարգմանիչ եմ, խնդրել են այսօր թարգմանել ձեզ համար այս ժողովը, որը ներկայացնում է Burbank քաղաքի PTA կազմակերպության խորհուրդը, ինչպես պրեզիդենտը ներկայացրեց, օրորդ Շարլին Ուոլթերսը, պետք է խոսենք ABC պարտատոմսի մասին, ինչ ազդեցություն կունենա այն մեր քաղաքի, մեր դպրոցների վրա։ Եթե հարցեր ունեք, խնդրում ենք գրեք չաթ բաժնում, նույնիսկ հայոց լեզվով, մենք այն կթարգմանենք եւ կաշխատենք պատասխանել դրանց, ինչպես նաեւ այս հաղորդումը այսօր ձայնագրվում է, եթե չեք ցանկանում, որպիսի դուք երևաք, խնդրում ենք ձեր տեսախցիկները անջատեք եւ վայելեք այսօրվա հաղորդումը։ Եթե ցանկանում եք այս ներկայացում այսօրվա լսել հայոց լեզվով, իմ խոսքից հետո ինձ կուղարկեն իմ սենյակը, թարգմանության սենյակը, դուք կարող եք սեղմել ձեր էկրանների գլոբուսի նշանը, ընտրել հայոց լեզուն եւ կլսեք այս ամենը հայոց լեզվով։ Շնորհակալություն եւս մեկ անգամ բարի վայելում։ Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you, Ms. Lundberg and Ms. Arzumanian. About this seminar, it is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel this week. The chat is unavailable, but please feel free to place your questions in the question and answer function found at the bottom bar of your Zoom screen. I know this will not be an issue, but please refrain from using profanity or insults. We will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. We encourage you to share the knowledge you've learned with your friends and neighbors. Burbank Council PTA is happy to host this webinar because as the largest advocacy organization in the nation, PTA raises public awareness on critical issues, legislation, policies, and measures. One of the ways PTAs get involved in their local community is by endorsing and supporting ballot measures that further the safety, the education, and the physical and mental well-being of our students. The Burbank Council, PTA, formed a bond study committee to research Measure ABC, determining that Measure ABC aligned with the purposes of PTA and would benefit all children. Burbank Council, PTA, voted to unanimously support the measure. So tonight we have guests and translators here from the district and the school board who are off the clock and willing to share their information and answer questions about this important measure. We are pleased to welcome with us BUSD Superintendent Dr. John Paramo, BUSD Assistant Superintendent, Administrative Services, Andrew Cantwell, School Board President, Dr. Emily Weisberg, and we have President of Burbank Teachers Association, Nicole Drabecki, Principal of Luther Middle School, Stephen Hubble, and we also have the Principal of Burroughs High School, Kenny Newt. Joining us later will be Burbank Council PTA's third VP of Ledge and Advocacy, Christina Ballos. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to start with Dr. Paramo. Can you start by explaining what Measure ABC is to our audience, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this webinar. I'm really happy to be able to share with you why this measure is so important to us as a school district, and to express my excitement about the potential for what could happen in our schools and how this can benefit our kids. Before I jump in, I just want to say that I love John Burroughs High School as much as Burbank High. I'm wearing a blue polo today, but I do wear red polos as well, and it looks fabulous on me, just saying. So let me start by telling you that a school bond is a loan that a school district takes out to pay for major projects such as new buildings, new schools, renovating existing ones, or upgrading technology. The school district then sells bonds to investors and repays the loan over time through increased property taxes. School districts call bond elections to ask voters for permission to sell bonds. Voters decide whether to pay for the proposed projects. In California, a school district can authorize a local general obligation bond with a 55% vote. Bonds are similar to home loans and are typically repaid over 30 years. School district property owners pay back the principal and interest through property taxes. If the bond initiative passes, it would extend the previously approved tax until 2060. So let me say that again. If the current measure ABC, passes, it extends the voter-approved tax rate of up to $55.18 per $100,000 of assessed value. So that's probably hard to understand unless I give you some practical examples. So I'm going to give you three. For a property assessed at $500,000, the total tax burden for this household in 2025 will be $276 annually. For a property assessed at $900,000, the tax burden would be $497 annually. And for a property assessed at $1.5 million, the tax burden would be $828 annually.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. We really needed that explanation, but we also have a really important question that we need to ask as well. Why do we need Measure ABC? Andy Cantwell, can you answer that for us?
Good evening. Absolutely. Thank you. I want to take a few minutes to explain the way that schools are funded in California. Many of you have heard local control funding formula. It is just celebrated its 10-year anniversary of being the law in California that funds schools not based on enrollment, although that's how we staff. If we have 30 students in a classroom, we staff based on the kids enrolled. We're funded based on attendance. In Burbank Unified School District, we have about 95% attendance rate, which means on any given day, we lose funding for about 5% of our student population who are not present. We receive a base grant amount of approximately $13,000 per child. And then there's supplemental funding, additional funding, if a student meets certain demographic criteria. The primary demographic criteria that the state considers for additional funding are students who qualify as low income, students who are in the foster system, students who are currently unhoused, and students who are English language learners. And so Burbank Unified School District as a whole receives about $15,000 per child to educate the youth in Burbank. If you look to some of our neighboring districts, it really is an apples and oranges comparison for funding. Glendale receives nearly 20% more funding per child. LA Unified receives over 60% more funding per child. Again, that's due to the nature of the demographics of the communities that they're serving. California funds education through that model for the daily operational expenses of running the school, of instructing students. It has provided 3 methods for funding large-scale construction and reconstruction or large-scale repairs to facilities in public schools. The first is through developer fees. When a new development comes into Burbank or anywhere across the state, fees are paid by that developer to the school district to help ensure that the district has the facility capacity necessary to meet the impact of that growth. In addition to that, the state provides state aid or state funding to support local construction projects. Burbank, over the next 5 years, will be eligible for $40 million of state aid. However, we are not eligible for any funding from the state without a local match. For us to access the $40 million of state aid, we have to have either dollar for dollar matching funds at the local level, or in some cases actually have to have a 3-to-2 match where we are able to pay locally 60% of the construction cost and the state provides us 40%. So again, ways to fund construction and large-scale facility projects. I mentioned the first one is developer fees, the second one is state aid, and the third one is a facility bond, which Dr. Paramo just explained. I want to give you a little context for 2024 and facility bonds. Next month, Burbank is by no means alone in seeking community support to help reinvest in our facilities. In fact, in LA County alone, there are 30 school districts utilizing this method of funding school construction projects. 30 school districts seeking a total of $17 billion of funding for school construction. So Burbank makes up about 2.5% of the total dollar amount that's on the ballot just in LA County to help fund public education school construction projects. If we zoom out and look across the entire state, 30% of all school districts either pursued a facility bond during the primary earlier this year or are doing so next month. 241 school districts in the state are have a ballot measure next month for facility bond. If we look back in 2022 and 2020, we can see over 200 school districts in each of those elections had comparable facility bond measures. And so across the entire state, over half of school districts have pursued a facility bond just in the past 4 years. Again, why is this? It really goes fundamentally to this is the structure, this is the mechanism that California has established for funding large-scale school construction projects. It is not the intention of the local control funding formula, which drives its focus on supporting the instructional needs of particular children, to be the method by which large-scale construction and reconstruction projects occur. And so if you're looking at, again, Burbank Unified, our budget this past year was about $220 million. Because we are experiencing declining enrollment, our funding for this current school year is actually below where it was last year. You may hear often that in the state budget that a COLA, a cost of living adjustment, is provided to school districts. That is true. However, this year, the impact of declining enrollment was greater than the value of the cost of living adjustment. And so therefore, despite receiving a COLA, Burbank Unified is receiving fewer dollars this year to educate kiddos than we did last year. And if we look at the projections for next year and the year after, we're looking at a budget decline of nearly 8% from where we were just this past school year. Having a school budget that goes from $220 million down to just over $200 million. So again, I want to make sure that that is understood, because I know that I just threw out a lot of numbers and I threw out some pretty large financial concepts. California funds the daily operational and instructional needs through a base grant, supplemented with funding for certain targeted demographics, certain targeted student groups. And then each year they give us a cost of living adjustment. They look at the impact of inflation, just as we each feel it individually. Businesses and government also experience the impact of inflation. And so the government tries to give an increase in funding to schools to acknowledge and to help offset those increases, many of which are outside of the control of a local school district, whether it's the utility rates or it's the state mandated pension contribution. A number of costs increase each year. And so the cost of living adjustment given to us by the state is an attempt to help increase a school's budget to adjust those increases. In Burbank, we are not able to actually see an increase in annual funding. Our funding has gone down this past year, and it's projected to continue to go down into the future. And so that's why we are asking the community to consider supporting a bond. As Dr. Paramo mentioned, again, a bond is a form of funding education in the method that the state intended, that local individuals can support their schools locally, that a tax by the people of Burbank can go toward improving and bettering the quality of academic programming and spaces for the students in Burbank, rather than the other mechanisms where funds go up to the state and then get redistributed across the state. Hopefully that answers the questions surrounding our budget and the commonality or the frequency of the way in which school construction is funded. And so I want to turn now to talk briefly about some of the safeguards that are in place for facility bonds. In 2000, the state of California passed Proposition 39. Proposition 39 allows us to seek the community support for facility bond and to secure passage with 55% of the voters in support of our bond. And there are a few requirements the state imposes as a result. One is a citizen oversight committee We call that locally here the SFOC, the School Facility Oversight Committee. The School Facility Oversight Committee has a really important role. Their responsibility is to ensure the funds that are raised through a bond issuance, through the facility bond, are used for the purposes stated. We cannot use bond dollars for teacher salaries. We cannot use bond dollars to drive down class sizes across the district. We can't use bond dollars for purchasing an investment in new curriculum or instructional materials. There's very narrow parameters around what a facility bond can be used for. If you have a chance, look at the ballot language. Actually, the materials include the project, the types of projects that would be funded. And so the facility, the SFOC, is the one responsible for ensuring that funds are being used appropriately on projects that have been identified in accordance with the bond language. They work directly with a third-party auditor, a CPA audit firm, who will audit the district's finances each year and ensure that the facility bond is, again, being used for permissible uses. It will also be ensuring that the funds are being properly accounted for. And so the SFOC receives that report, and it becomes then the watchdog agency locally. So we're not reliant on Sacramento or anywhere else, but we have our own citizens in Burbank who are able to review the books, able to speak with the independent auditor, able to be involved in the discussions around the facility projects that are being prioritized. And then they're responsible for an annual report that goes to the community, sharing what they've seen and sharing what they've received from the auditor. If you have not yet seen one of the SFOC reports, I encourage you to go to burbankusd.org, and you can find the SFOC page where all 10 annual reports since the 2013 Measure S was adopted are posted on the website. All 10 years of reports are up there. I mentioned Measure S, so I'd like to also give a little background to make sure that
I think we might have lost him for a moment. That's okay. Well, we can continue with what he's saying in a moment, but I guess we'll move on to the next section, which I'd love to bring up Dr. Emily Weisberg. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So in the spring, the school board passed the bond resolution. Can you explain to us how Measure ABC will improve our schools?
I can indeed. I'm just trying to get a cat off of my lap. So it's going to improve our schools in a lot of really important ways. Something that actually one of our other board members shared with me also in her downtime was something really interesting about the correlation between heat and learning. So one of the major things that we really need to improve are our HVAC systems, where air conditioning and heat come into play. I sort of like to think about it like a used car, where you get this used car and you take care of it and you keep it up and you do all of the service and maintenance that's required. But at some point, the amount of money that you're going to put into the used car is going to be more than you spent on it to begin with. So most of us know that the life of air conditioning or HVAC systems is about 15 to 20 years, maybe a little longer. And then when you think about how these current HVAC systems have to heat and cool large auditoriums and classrooms, gyms and performance spaces, you can see why we need a lot of new HVAC systems. Now, we have an unbelievable team in our facilities department who does regular maintenance and answers issues as they arise, but there's only so much they can do to repair something when it needs replacing. So yeah, HVAC is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So that is one area that we need a lot of help in. We all know that these past 2 months have felt like a prolonged summer with multiple 100+ degree weather. So back to that heat and learning I mentioned a moment ago, what board member Ponser Kamkar discovered in her research was the correlation between learning loss and also student academic performance and heat. So when we're talking about 100+ degree classrooms, which sadly was the case in many of our schools this year, there can be as much as a 13% drop in student performance and learning in a 90-degree classroom as compared to a 70 or 70+ degree classroom. And that's from a UCLA study. So you can see that it's not just about being comfortable, right? And we do want our teachers to be comfortable and our staff and our students to be comfortable, but it's also about understanding that successful learning takes place in a safe, comfortable, up-to-date learning environment. And there are studies that show the very real connection between lack of air conditioning and student performance, leaky roofs and student performance, right? Nobody wants to go to work or learn in a room that is leaking. Many of our schools are 60 to 100 years old, and so about 70% of our roofs need to be replaced. So this isn't an issue of, oh, there are a couple of things we want to tweak here and a couple of things we want to tweak there. We're talking about real substantial infrastructure repair that's needed in order to keep our students learning in the way that we know that they can, and keep our teachers teaching in the way that we know that they can. A couple of other areas, and again, I want to echo what Mr. Cantwell said. If you go towards the end of the bond language, which you can find on our website, there is a list of some prospective projects broken down by high school, middle school, and elementary. And you can see things like repair and replace aging and failing roofs, ADA compliance, making sure that ramps, elevators, lifts, that all of the accessibility that's not only necessary, but legally required is met, that we're able to make really important improvements and upgrades to campus security, like new locks and cameras. We talked a little bit about heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, how important that is. Upgrading and modernizing some of our restrooms, some of our STEAM facilities. The list goes on, and you can see it. And the question of, what gonna get taken care of first, that's a conversation that we have further down the line. But again, to echo something that Mr. Cantwell said, all of this money is going to be used specifically for infrastructure repair, some of the things that I talked about, and additional items that you can see on the list. So what it boils down to is our students are receiving an unbelievable education in Burbank schools, but often our teachers and our staff are providing that education in some pretty challenging circumstances that are in desperate need of addressing. And this bond will allow us to begin to address these problems. Will the bond, will we have enough money to do all of it? No, but we're going to get cracking at the really important stuff. And again, I want to reiterate that this isn't about making, some sort of, putting a fresh coat of paint on something. This is about real need in our rooms to keep them air conditioned, to keep them safe, to keep a roof over our heads as we learn and as we teach. And because of the state funding the way that it is, we're looking to our community members to support us and support our schools, because the state just simply doesn't financially.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Weisberg. We appreciate that. I think I'll bring back Andrew Cantwell just to finish off what you were saying.
Forgive me for my IT issues. And someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me right now. It looks like I might be frozen again. Okay, thank you very much. I think my internet dropped me as I was sharing Measure S. Measure S was passed in 2013. It was a $110 million bond. And so right now, as it stands, we continue to pay off both the 1997 bonds and the 2013 bonds. The 97 bonds we paid off in 2 years. And so that's one of the reasons why, timing-wise, we're asking the community to recommit to the investment that prior generations of Burbank residents have made, to maintain the rate that was approved in 2013 as we pay off the 97 bonds. In 2013, again, $110 million, we were able to successfully leverage a number of other funding sources. And so we were able to fund nearly $150 million of construction. Included within that was some of the same types of projects that we're discussing again today, roofs and HVAC. We also were able to bring in a number of classroom buildings. And so most recently, we completed the 2-story structure at Disney, where we brought in about 10 really state-of-the-art classrooms, and we were able to do that across 6 elementary campuses in the district. And so the 97 bond will soon be completing. The 2013 bond remains, and what we're asking the community to support is a continuation of the rate that, again, was approved 11 years ago in 2013. Dr. Pramo's already explained how that rate works as a function of overall assessed valuation, so I won't repeat that. But just to reiterate that we are so grateful for the valuable investments this community has made to education going back to the 50s, to 97, to 2013. Right now, though, we do have the 7th lowest bond rate in the entire county. In LA County, again, I mentioned 88 school districts, 48 of which are unified school districts, which mean that they run from kindergarten or transitional kindergarten all the way through high school. And of those 48 school districts, a rate that is assessed on community properties, meaning that from a taxpayer perspective, it is the 7th lowest rate that a taxpayer pays in the entire county to support school construction. I hopefully have answered the questions around the bonds, the Citizen Oversight Committee, and the funding mechanisms for California. But Charlene, please let me know if I have anything else.
Well, that was great. Thank you for sharing all that information with us. It's a lot to take in, but it's important because it helps us understand the importance of investing in our schools. When we invest in our schools, we invest in our community. It just makes Burbank better when our schools are better. So thank you for sharing all that so people understand the money behind it all. Mm-hmm. So next, we'd like to hear from someone who is working with the students in these facilities every day, and that's Mr. Becky. Can you share the current challenges teachers and students face when it comes to the facilities you all are working and studying in?
Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Jabecki. I am the current Burbank Teachers Association president. I am a teacher at Dolores Huerta. I have taught at Burbank High, Jefferson Elementary, Edison Elementary, and now Dolores Huerta. So I have had a good look at what our schools look like from being a teacher in those and visiting them. So number one, our roofs. I mean, when we have leaks in our classroom and we put the trash can under that particular tile in that classroom, we're waiting for a repair. And the nice thing is repairs are helpful, but it's not meant to last over a long period of time. About a month ago, we had that high heat where I believe it was in the high 100s. We had a lot of classrooms throughout our schools that air conditionings failed, where portable air conditioning had to be brought in. I know me personally at Dolores Huerta, we didn't have air for like 4 days. And so that was kind of hard. And talking to my other colleagues, we really need new technology in the classroom. We are teaching students in the 21st century to get jobs here in California, and a lot of our technology needs to be updated. And we have, for example, projectors that our teachers use every day. Those are failing. We've had computers that are aging out, that we would, love to have newer equipment for our students. If you can picture what your desk and chair looked like when you went to school, chances are those desks and chairs are still the same ones that we're currently using in 2024. There are cracked tiles in the hallways that not only students are walking on, but Burbank teachers are walking on. I don't know if you've ever been to our outside playgrounds recently, but when I worked at Edison Elementary, they had some really large cracks, and it's all over where the kids are playing at nutrition and lunchtime. Our staff parking lots have large cracks in them that our members are parking on. To tell you a little bit about the greenery in Burbank, we've had many trees get cut down due to the diseases and possibly falling on students. So a lot of our trees have been cut down, and we would love to have them replaced. We don't really have a whole lot of shade on some of our campuses. And as you know, with the climate that we live in, it's getting hotter for our students. When we had those rains, some of our classrooms have mold or water damage from the roof leaks that we experience. So teachers and students have dealt with that. And obviously, when that happens, we do notify the district to get it fixed right away. Unfortunately, our students hopefully don't, but our members do see rats at our schools, and a lot of it could just be from an older building that's 60 to 100 years old. Some of the repairs that we would like to do have been put on hold just because we haven't had the money. And that's exactly why we're informing the Burbank resident, so you could get a bird's eye view of what we're dealing with. But again, quick fixes is not 20 years from now. Most importantly, we want safe learning environments for our students. I want the best for all of our students at the elementary and the secondary level, and having schools that are modernized can definitely help those environments for the students to be better, and same thing for our members. As Mr. Cantwell had talked about, the investment with Measure S from 2013, it did help fix some parts of our school, and it did make it better, but we still have more to do. And it's hard to keep schools that are 60 to 100 years old going strong for another 20 or 30 years when you don't have the community help out. Again, from the roofie leak, some of our classroom tiles have stains on them. I know of 3 Burbank elementary schools where their auditoriums have no air conditioning. And I would love for those auditoriums to have air conditioning for our students. But the Burbank Teachers Association has endorsed Measure ABC. We have 720 members that are interacting with our students daily. And I am a Burbank homeowner, and I am definitely voting yes on Measure ABC. And I am happy to pay, the tax money on my property tax. And I just asked the resident of Burbank, if you're not quite sure what you should do, just think about the students. This is all about the students and getting them have the best opportunity to have the best education so that they can be successful in California and make it out there with our cost of living. So I thank you for your time, and thanks for all you do for being a good Burbank residents to want to be informed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Becky. We appreciate what you shared. I see you getting a little emotional because you care about the kids, and so do we here at Burbank Council PTA. This is why we want this measure to pass, because we want the best for our students and our kids. To share a little bit more information about what's happening at the schools, I'd like to invite Stephen Hubble and Penny New, our school administrators who are on today. And we'd just like you to talk about some of the things that you're experiencing at your schools, any specific issues that you'd like to address, and what you'd like to be seen, what you would like to have dealt with first at your school. Stephen and Kenny?
Hi, everybody. Can you get it?
All right, I see Stephen.
Good.
And there's awesome. Thank you. Mr. Hubble and Mr. New.
Go for it. Go for it, Mr. Hubble. You can start.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newt. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Hubble. I'm the principal at Luther Burbank Middle School. I am a product of the Burbank Unified School District, having gone to school here and worked at John Burroughs, Burbank High School, and now Luther Burbank Middle School. One thing that I've noticed is there are a handful of our schools that are older, and my school specifically, the biggest concern is roofs and HVAC systems like that. If I were to have the number one priority, and I know I'm reiterating what Dr. Weisberg and Mr. Becky has said, but the roofs, we have areas that, during the heavy rains that we've had over the last couple of years, that it's leaking through the walls and coming into classrooms and coming into the office space. HVAC units, I can say this, I'm very appreciative of our facilities department, who is always out there and supporting us, but I do understand that sometimes when you have HVAC units that have been around for some time, that they're going to be needed of maintenance frequently. So we were lucky to upgrade our HVAC system in our auditorium, but there's still other places that we have people that come out routinely, and again, I'm thankful for them.
Mr. Hubble, sorry to interrupt. Can you slow down a little bit? I think you might not be seeing the chat, but just a bit.
No, I don't see the chat. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so slow down for us a bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the biggest thing for me are roofs and HVAC systems like that. And then safety-wise, be great to have cameras. We do have some small cameras on the entrances to the school, but it's nice to have most of them around to help when it comes to safety, help when it comes to possibility of vandalism and any other discipline-related issues. But those are my big three. And of course, I'd love to modernize classrooms, but I want to make sure the lights and the roofs are working first.
Thank you. And Mr. New at John Burroughs Middle School.
John Burroughs. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm grateful to be part of this school, city, community PTA partnership. I know how important this really is, being there every day. I am also a proud alumni of all Burbank schools. I went to Edison and then Puerta to John Burroughs. I am also a parent of a third grader at Edison. So I see a lot of different sides and angles of this. I also want to start, I kind of want to echo what everybody's been saying, that I want to express my sincere gratitude for our CSCA facilities team. The amazing support staff that shows up daily to maintain, to fix, to repair, to replace. This is not anything against them. I know how hard they work and the hours they put in. But without a staff such as an amazing group like our CSCA, we would not be able to run a comprehensive school that has over 2,300 kids and over 300 employees without CSCA, and their resiliency and perseverance of dealing with schools, especially like John Burroughs, that was originally built in 1928, turned into a high school in 1948. And our last remodel, it was in 2004. And this is on a campus that is greater than 275,000 square feet. I mean, this is a huge facility. This is, I make jokes all the time that it's like working at a city of our own. There's always something going on between choir, between sports, between band, between our dramas that are all outstanding and amazing. But at the same time, when each of these programs are bringing in 1,200 guests on a Thursday night to watch our amazing choir, it takes a toll on bathrooms. It takes a toll on water fountains. It takes a toll on pretty much anything that moves. If the door opens, it's got, 5,000 people going through it on a daily basis on the hour. So when you have facilities that are as old as they are, it is really difficult to maintain, no matter how amazing they are. But being a school, and I'm kind of going to throw out just some safety and concerns in general, but we absolutely have the weather-beaten roofs. We just went through a huge major gym reinstall for the roof, and they repaired it. And the gym itself is amazing. But there's still some counter leaks that are passed off of it that go into the gym foyer for when parents are walking in, making an unsafe environment, or kids that is school day. Our boys' PE office, it's like it's raining indoors in their restroom on their computers. Our elevators, I feel like I'm making a call almost daily to have an elevator looked at, checked on, whether it's squeaking or bumping. Air conditioning, HVAC units, I can't echo this enough. This is our number one issue. When school starts in August and September, on any given day, we have between 5 and 10 classrooms that are down without having 5 or 10 classrooms to move classrooms so our teachers have the ability to teach our students. It's playing the shell game. We're moving people around just enough to get into a room that's 85 and not 95. It's a struggle. Leaks. Even though the gym isn't leaking, there's still some HVAC major leaking that happens. Nicole Drebecki talked about this, which is awesome, is the leaks are causing not just unsafe environments and mold, but the tiles. You walk into a room and there's broken tiles, missing tiles, stained tiles, and it's all based off of water coming out of the HVAC units because they're old and they're beat up, and they run all day long because of the events that we have. Our water fountains are, again, I think our facilities has done a great job of doing their best to maintain them, but with the little bit of vandalism that we get and the use with 2,500 people using a water, they break and they fall off the walls, and it's part of what we do. It's a huge issue. Another huge project is our main drain system that goes from the school to the city, and we have major flooding in our drains. If you've ever been to Memorial Field during the winter season, during a soccer game, there are puddles that go from the numbers on the football field, soccer field, all the way to lane 7. And it takes a team of 8 or 9 people out there with pumps pulling water up just so the kids can play a game in the afternoon. Doors, like I said, anything that moves, we struggle with. I mean, just today, I was trying to think of stuff to talk about tonight, and I opened the door to walk in the office, and a screw fell out, and I caught it. And it takes time to call and get somebody in, and it was fixed within 5 or 6 minutes. But just the fact that an old school has a door frame that a screw fell out of, literally on a day that I'm trying to find something to talk about. Locks malfunction on a daily basis, whether they open, they just constantly spin, whether there's a security gate that opens or doesn't, it's a daily problem. Plumbing in general, toilets are leaking. Again, some of it's old facility, some of it's kids, some vandalism. But we constantly have sinks that have irregular pressure because the regular coming off the city's bringing water too heavy, and it's our facility that can't keep up with it. Or a sink that just doesn't work at all because we had to shut it off because of another issue with the age of the bathroom. The stalls and the walls and the connections and the doors, they're all issues, and we need upgraded.
Sorry, Mr. Noop, can you slow down a bit?
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course. But just trying to keep up with 2,300 children using restrooms every period, every day, and making sure that there's stalls that are working for them in there. It's a challenge. So having upgraded bathroom facilities is going to be a major part of what we need on our campus. Right now we have no working ice machines. So like with sports and rehab, I mean, we have booster club programs that are going out of their way to use fundraised money to buy ice for programs for injuries and for cold drinks and water, just because it's something that we're dealing with. Our pool pump, we've been challenged with a pool pump. Dennis Maxwell and the facilities group did an amazing job of getting in front of this thing as best they could, and then a pool pump showed up that was broken. So we're putting a used temporary pool pump in for a pool that has boys water polo, girls water polo, aquatics, 3 levels, boys and girls for Burbank and Burroughs. So anywhere between 10 and 12 to 15 different programs are using a pool that has a temporary, because it's a facility that needs to be upgraded. Boys and girls PE lockers, I would say right now, 25% of them don't work, which is a problem when you're trying to figure out getting kids dressed. And then realistically, it'll be fixed, but just as an example, we had to shut down the electricity in a room because we needed to manage what the electricity looked like in an old building that was remodeled but originally built in 1948. And just so our teachers can teach, our students can learn. Measure ABC is a crucial initiative. I think it's designed to improve infrastructure on these resources at school, and I believe that they will greatly enhance the quality of our education. And I want to go out supporting this Measure ABC and letting you know that it is vital to making the enhancements at our school a reality so teachers can teach and students can learn.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. I know that, you guys are juggling so much throughout the day. Discipline, just classwork, all these things that are happening. So for all these extra issues to come up, it must be so annoying for you. But I can say, because I'm at your school, that you handle it so well. And I know that you and Mr. Hubble are doing everything to make sure that the kids, even though these things are happening, they're still having a safe and secure environment. And we appreciate you for that. Thank you. I would love for all of our panelists to join us, including Christina, as I introduced her before. Now you can see her lovely face. She's our 3rd VP of Legend Advocacy with Council PTA. And Christina, do you have a couple questions that you'd like to ask?
Yes, I do. Several projects are listed in the bond resolution. How do you determine which projects get priority? And anyone may answer this.
I'll jump in first. Certainly a student-focused approach. And so when I say that, what I mean is focusing on student safety, student wellness, and student accessibility. And so that's top priority. Secondly, and equally related and important, is ensuring the preservation of facilities. When we talk about leaking roofs or windows that don't properly seal, that is, placing the structural integrity and longevity at risk. And so the 2 main criteria is, again, a student-focused approach on health, safety, wellness, and accessibility, and a preservation of facility.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Another question that has come up, these questions actually have come up at PTA units often, so we just thought we would ask them now. What is the difference between Prop 2 and Measure ABC? Andy, Mr. Cantwell, you did explain that, but just to clarify, because keeps coming up.
Yeah, thank you. So actually, I don't know if I did a great job of fully closing the loop on this topic. I mentioned state aid. However, the state doesn't have money to provide local school districts that state aid support. I mentioned Burbank is eligible for $40 million of state aid. However, the state's method of funding its contribution to districts is similar to ours. It's through a facility bond. And so next month, the entire state of California is being asked to support Proposition 2, which would fund the state at $10 billion, billion, which would then be sent out to districts that have projects ready to go with their match. And so in order for us to access that $40 million, we want to get ourselves into line quickly after November and ensure that we do have a local means of funding our share of the project.
Another question that has arisen quite often is that we receive revenue from lottery sales. Why can't that be used?
If it's okay, I'm going to just keep on answering the questions until someone stops me. That's a great question. That's one that we do hear often. So I want to make sure that we understand. Lottery funds come to us partially restricted that are to be used for instructional materials. And we get just over $100 per child. And so that for Burbank Unified works out to be $1.8 million a year for instructional materials restricted for curriculum and instructional materials. We also receive just over $200 per child from the lottery that has no restrictions. We can use it for any operational purpose. $200 with our student population works out to be about $2.7 million. And so we've mentioned roofs a lot. I just want to put a really tangible number to it. We received a report recently that said to replace the roofs currently across the district that require replacement, it's $70 million, 70. And that's for the current failing systems. That's not for those that may be failing in 8 years when we will still be using Measure ABC dollars to replace those systems then. It's for the current ones in need of replacement, 70 million. And so as much as the lottery funds are able to help a school district, even if we diverted those out of the classroom for instruction and were to use it for these facility needs, it would not come close to funding the magnitude of need that we have identified in a facility master plan that Perkins Eastman helped us put together over the past 12 months.
Thank you. So how much funding does Burbank Unified receive from the average daily attendance, ADA, and how does that compare to, let's say, LAUSD or Glendale Unified?
Mr. Cramo, I know you know these numbers also. Do you want to jump in on this one?
No, go ahead, bro. You're doing great.
So this is a little bit of a nuance.
Well, Dr. Prano, I think it might be you.
Answer, and in this venue, I'm going to try to shorten it. It does vary if we're talking about a kindergartner versus a high schooler, and whether or not they fit into the demographic criteria I mentioned earlier. But approximately about $14,000 per child across the district is how much we receive in funding. And if you look at our neighbors in Glendale, they make almost 20% more on a per student basis. If you look to LA Unified, they receive more than 60% more funding than we do on a per child basis. So those districts are also larger, and so there's certain economies of scale that also come with that size. But even on a per student basis, comparing apples to apples in revenue, our neighboring districts receive anywhere from 15 to 18% up to 60+% more funding than we do.
That's an amazing difference. and amazing, not in a good way.
Okay. Another question that has come up quite frequently is, how are school facility oversight committee members selected, and are those meetings open to the public?
Yeah, the the School Facility Oversight Committee is subject to the Brown Act, and so all meetings are publicly agendized and available for the community to attend. By law, we must have at least 5 members, and the law specifies organizations or groups that those members must represent. Which includes someone representing a taxpayer advocacy group, an individual who is active in senior citizen groups, an individual who is a current parent, an individual who is active in the PTA or in a parent site council group, and a parent involved in local business. Or, I'm sorry, it doesn't have to be a parent, but a member who is involved in local business. And so those are the 5 groups that have to be represented on the committee. However, Burbank realizes that we have incredible experts in their fields who know things about aspects of school construction that I certainly don't, and others within our district may not. And so we every time have believed that more minds in the room are going to help drive better outcomes. And so our SFOC has never only been made up of 5 committee members, but it's often made up of at least double, plus having some members who are non-voting members as well. And so right now, Justin Worsham is the chair of that committee, has done a great job leading for the past few years. And we have regular meetings throughout the year that, again, are public meetings that we encourage you to attend. The board is the school board is responsible for appointing the individuals to the committee. However, the committee is responsible for identifying its officers and is responsible for, or individuals complete an application to the school board for consideration.
So I'd like to thank you all. I'd like to thank you all for answering some of our frequently asked questions at our PTA meetings. And so now I'd like to open up to any questions that we may have in our question and answer. Let me see. Oh, I think we've answered all of them. That's good. That means you guys did a fantastic presentation. So I'd like to just say thank you so much for being here. We appreciate everything that you have done for our schools. We've heard so many things about the roofs and the HVAC, and we need to talk about them because people need to understand what's happening. But I think we also need to remember how powerful and wonderful our district is. So many parents choose this district because of the care of the staff, the teachers, the admin, and we know that kids come first in Burbank. So thank you for always putting them first. And we, as Burbank Council PTA, enjoy working with you all and ensuring that that's the case. And I just wanted to know if Dr. Paramo, if you had any statements that you'd like to make.
I do, actually. I really appreciate the graciousness of you and the rest of the PTA for hosting the event. As superintendent, I get to spend a lot of time with Council PTA in many different forums. And I feel very connected to that group just because of the amount of time that we spend together to problem solve and to do amazing things for kids. And I've developed relationships that are genuine and that they're real. And these are our community. This is our community. And I have an obligation to all of you And I take that really seriously. It's not random people. You are people that I sit across the table with. And you guys ask tough questions. And you have a lot of really provocative things to share with me that have to be addressed. And I see that as a partnership. I see that as us working together on behalf of kids. I never walk away from one of our meetings and feel like, oh my God, I just got beat up. No, that's not how it feels at all. Not for me. It feels to me like, okay, they just identified 3 things that 2 of which are not even on my radar. And I got to start working on this. And I take it immediately to cabinet and we dig in. Why am I saying all this? Mismanaging a bond is not an option. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to let that happen. You guys are people that I have to look in the eyeballs 3 times a month just on our meetings. I'm not gonna let anything like that happen. This is for our kids. This is important. In my opinion, these are just my words. There's nothing sexy about this bond. There's no brand new library. There's no brand new school. But it's because we have some real serious basic needs that have to get met. Probably the sexiest thing on this bond is the softball fields for girls, because 1, they've waited long enough to have a field, and 2, it's a compliance issue. We are not complying with the federal government in Title IX, so this has to be addressed. But other than that, these are things that we really need. These are things that affect kids in a powerful way, and this is really important. And I know the people in Burbank, and I've worked here long enough to know that you're going to hold me responsible, you're going to hold me accountable, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And so I want to say that to the folks and to the community so that you know that this is something we take seriously, and we know we're asking for a lot. And I appreciate the partnership.
Thanks again. Our hope is that your questions and concerns were addressed tonight for all our attendees, and that you now are informed to be a good voter when it comes to bond measure ABC. Take some time to check out the website, Yes on ABC. And if you need more information about the school board candidates, I just want to invite you to join us tomorrow night for candidate meet and greet at 6:30 to 8 at the Buena Vista Library. And for now, I'd like to say good night to everyone. Have a great evening and enjoy the rest of your week. Goodbye.